A man reflects on his simple reason for becoming a developer. Kang Dong-woo, known as Max, chose his developer job for the quiet solitude it offers. His coworker suddenly speaks up, breaking the silence to discuss their workspace. She turns her head, a thoughtful expression on her face as she glances his way. Annoyed by the interruption, Max internally criticizes her messy desk. His coworker inquires about another colleague, Patrick, learning he won't arrive for a while. Feeling the awkwardness, Max tries to put on his headphones to signal he doesn't want to talk. Just as he's about to escape, she exclaims, startling him. She asks who updates the team's development guidelines, and Max nervously explains his role in creating them with Andy. He panics over her potential compliment, and her next words fill him with dread. With a friendly smile, she asks him to call her Joy. Erg. Her cheerful introduction is too much for the introverted Max to handle. Another woman arrives, and she and Joy cheerfully discuss their upcoming lunch meeting and company card. The woman offers Joy coffee, and Max silently questions her desire for more when her cup is still half full. Joy politely invites Max, but he awkwardly declines, noting to himself that she seems very considerate. Undeterred, Joy suggests tea next time, leaving Max feeling trapped by her relentless friendliness as he reluctantly agrees. The scene shifts to a restaurant, where the team is having their lunch meeting. During lunch, Max reflects on Joy's reputation as a skilled and sociable 5-year veteran developer. He learns she is also a popular influencer, which only solidifies his view of her as an exceptionally diligent person. A moment of quiet reflection passes as he considers her energetic nature. He sees her as someone who is always enthusiastic, spreading positive energy to everyone around her. After lunch, Joy asks Max to book a meeting room for 1 p.m. as she and the others head out for coffee. Returning to his desk, he notices Joy's unlocked laptop and idly considers looking for a new job himself. He is stunned to see that Joy's screen is open to a job search website. He's terrified by the revelation, her earlier cheerfulness now seeming almost scary. Fearing she'll be exposed, he anxiously paces around the empty office, unsure what to do. His odd behavior draws stares from other teams, adding to his stress as he clenches his fist. He tries to convince himself it's not his problem and returns to his seat, determined to ignore it. Just then, Joy returns from her coffee run, looking startled. She stares in disbelief at her now-closed laptop, her expression shifting to one of shock. Confused, she looks over to see Max pretending to be asleep with a raccoon eye mask. Snore! A coworker asks Joy if something is wrong, but Joy quickly brushes off her concern. Exhausted, Max removes his eye mask, lamenting that the team lunch cost him his precious nap time. Suddenly, Dudon, he panics, realizing she must know he was the one who covered for her. He agonizes, but dumb, his heart pounds as he spirals, realizing his well-intentioned act was unwanted meddling, since she never asked for help. He imagines her furious, confronting him for touching her belongings without permission. He's struck by the horrifying realization that he was just meddling. Damn it. He spirals into regret, wishing he had just pretended he saw nothing at all. He looks up to see Joy staring at him with a serious, unreadable expression, but then her face breaks into a smile as she compliments his cute eye mask. She cheerfully asks for a link to buy the eye mask, leaving him completely stunned. Feeling like he's losing his mind, he dazedly agrees to send her the link. Tap. She turns away, her expression now hard to read. The episode concludes on a mysterious note as she examines a loose keycap from a keyboard. The story momentarily pauses. Max explains his simple reason for arriving early. It means he can leave early. He enters the quiet office, knowing he has it to himself before his colleagues arrive later. He settles in for a quiet morning of refactoring code before anyone else gets there. His cherished moment of calm is shattered by the snap of a snack stick. Beside him, Joy sighs contentedly while eating a cookie stick. She pauses mid-bite and glances over in his direction. Max internally grimaces, wanting no part of her snack offer. The story's title card is displayed, featuring Joy taking a selfie. The second episode begins, set against the backdrop of a modern office building. As lunchtime starts, coworkers predictably gather around Joy's desk. Annoyed by the chatter, Max tries to put on his headphones, wishing they'd be quiet so he could nap. A coworker observes that Joy has been coming in early lately. She recalls Joy used to arrive at 10, but Joy explains she's now focusing on work-life balance, an excuse Max internally scoffs at. Max cynically assumes she's just preparing to change jobs. The coworker probes further, mentioning Joy's recent time off, but Joy nervously laughs it off as nothing. Joy claims she's just busy preparing to move, but her anxious excuse only heightens Max's unease. He wonders why he's the one getting so anxious over her situation. Their colleague Patrick confidently declares that she is 100% going to job interviews. On the rooftop, Patrick explains to Max that taking consecutive days off during transfer season is a dead giveaway. Max complains about being dragged up to the roof for gossip, weakly defending Joy's story about moving. Patrick calls Max naive for believing her, pointing out her tense expression and even suggests a bet on her resignation. Acknowledging Max is a quick study, Patrick pivots the conversation. He suddenly asks Max to cover a 7 p.m. deployment for him, leaving Max stunned. Patrick explains he has a meeting with a real estate agent, and Max realizes he was manipulated into this conversation. Trying to sweeten the deal, Patrick offers Max an energy drink as a little gift for helping him out. Max seethes with internal rage at the audacity of that bastard Patrick. Staring at the gifted drink, Max vows revenge on Park Doyle, deciding the can is just a useless totem. As Joy overhears, Max panics, silently begging her not to get roped in, feeling he's about to quit. Ping. A message from Max confirms the deployment is complete, and Joy turns to her screen to begin the QA. Max grumbles to himself, realizing he was stuck with Patrick's leftover back-office work. He furiously types away at his keyboard as Joy watches him with a neutral expression. At 7:45 p.m., Max asks Joy why she's still here, and she explains she got lost in analyzing code, but will leave soon. He mutters about her sudden display of responsibility, and they fall into an awkward silence. Joy hesitates before asking Max if changing jobs during a busy time would be inconsiderate. Stunned, Max freezes as Joy quickly clarifies she's asking for a friend, not herself. As she nervously describes her friend's dilemma, Max internally scoffs, thinking, "Do not lie." Joy continues, explaining her friend feels guilty about leaving the team and is having trouble focusing. Max silently thinks that Patrick already figured it out, and she should be more discreet with her excuses. Joy offers her opinion, stating that it's only natural to move on for a better career opportunity. He asks if she really thinks so, and she affirms it, leaving him looking conflicted. Ping. A new notification arrives, and Joy announces that QA is finished. As they prepare to leave, Joy tells Max he should go home too. He reflects on how they somehow ended up leaving the office at the same time. While waiting at a crosswalk, Joy asks about Max's commute, and they discover they both take the bus. Joy cheerfully asks where he's going, and upon hearing his station realizes they live close by. Excited, she notes they're going the same way, while Max internally debates taking the subway to escape. He feels the situation is incredibly awkward as the walk signal turns green. They sit together at the bus stop, and Max plots to put his headphones in to create distance. Before he gets the chance, Joy offers him some candy. She teases that a sugar boost is better than a useless display item, and he reluctantly thanks her for the chocolate. Confused by her kindness, he wonders if he accidentally did something right. He subtly puts one earbud in, hoping to end the conversation. Joy leans in close and whispers praise, telling him he worked hard supporting a slacker senior. Braced by her praise, Max firms his resolve. He tries to calm his racing heart, telling himself she's just a kind person. But he feels indebted, realizing he's only been receiving her kindness lately. She dramatically describes the candy's intense cooling sensation, comparing it to magma. Completely bewildered by her strange comparison, Max can only stare in confusion. He resigns himself to her oddness, figuring it's fine as long as she's happy. Suddenly, Joy's expression turns serious as she looks at him thoughtfully. She quietly notes the candy's grapefruit flavor as the crosswalk light glows red. She calls out his name, and he turns to her with a questioning look. The moment hangs in the air at the quiet bus stop. Looking directly at him, she asks if he saw her laptop screen the other day. She repeats the question, her gaze intent as she waits for his answer. Her hands rest in her lap, the candy wrapper a small detail in the tense silence. Max freezes, his face a mask of pure shock and panic. The tense silence continues between them at the quiet, sunlit bus stop. Squeal! The bus suddenly pulls up to the stop, breaking the tension. Joy quickly gets up, announcing she'll get on first, and pointing to a spot. She pauses on the bus steps, glancing back at him with an unreadable expression. Defeated and exhausted on the bus, Max laments that he wants to change jobs too. The next morning begins with a fresh cup of tea. Arriving at 10 a.m. for the first time, he reflects on his unusual lateness. He admits he couldn't sleep, his mind replaying yesterday's tense conversation with Joy. Joy, however, seems focused on her work, her expression giving nothing away. Overwhelmed, he wonders if he should just take a vacation day to escape the awkwardness. Suddenly, his internal debate is shattered by an urgent notification. An issue has occurred. A coworker reports a critical bug with the order screen, asking Joy if it's her responsibility. The new coworker explains she is still unfamiliar with the system, as she just joined last week. They realize they're stuck, as the person in charge is on leave until tomorrow. Max watches the unfolding crisis from a distance, feeling removed from the problem. He looks on with a hesitant expression as the third episode, titled Issue, begins. The scene shifts to later that evening as the sun sets outside the office window. At 7:45 p.m., Max is still at his desk, his eyes weary but focused. Working late together, Joy confirms she's checked the table and sequel he mentioned. Max quickly diagnoses a potential library version issue, impressing the new coworker with his speed. He internally fumes about working unpaid overtime on a task that isn't even his. Damn it. He curses himself before shaking it off, realizing his resentment isn't important right now. His mind flashes back to her question at the bus stop, the real source of his anxiety. He's convinced she's testing him about the laptop, wondering if this is some kind of psychological warfare. He resolves to feign ignorance, but his plan shatters as Joy brings up their bus stop conversation. She cheerfully explains she found the same grapefruit candy on her desk last week and wondered if he left it. She then waves off his anxiety, telling him not to worry about the screen thing because it was nothing. Stunned by the sudden resolution, Max accidentally knocks his mug over, spilling its contents everywhere. As the broken mug lies on the floor, Joy rushes to ask if he's okay, and he stammers that his hand slipped. He reaches for the sharp pieces, but Joy warns him not to, sending him into another panic spiral. She watches his frantic state with a silent, knowing look. Tiesk, startled, he feels her touch his shoulder as she firmly tells him to look into her eyes. He reluctantly meets her gaze, his expression filled with uncertainty. On the floor amidst the mess, he looks up at her as she leans over him. With a gentle, knowing smile, she finally asks again, "You saw it, didn't you? That screen?" Overwhelmed by her question, Max trembles in a cold sweat. Pow. In his panic, he slams his hand onto a shard from the broken mug. Joy rushes to his side, asking if he's okay as he recoils in pain. Later, Max apologizes for looking at her screen, but Joy insists he doesn't have to. She gives him a cup of water for the shock, reassuring him he was just being considerate. As they sit together, he promises he hasn't told anyone, and she quietly accepts his word. Joy confesses that she feels guilty for planning to leave on her first day when the team desperately needed new staff. She admits to feeling ashamed, but Max internally muses that he was planning to escape too. Calling his name, she asks him if he ever feels stuck, catching him by surprise. She reminisces about her early career when endless overtime eventually led to a sense of routine. Although the work became comfortable, she explains, she grew anxious as her performance felt stagnant. This feeling of being stuck made her realize it was time to try something new. She laughs it off as too much information, as a thought reflects that a familiar hell can feel safer than the unknown. He reflects on the common dream of quitting, a dream that for most, including him, remains just talk. Joy looks at him with newfound respect, telling him that he's truly impressive. She explains that developers must study for life, and she wants to follow his dedicated example. Admiring his drive, she tells him she thinks it's amazing how he never settles. Max advises her to think of herself first, since the company won't take responsibility for her life. An awkward silence falls between them as Max worries he overstepped. He nervously adds that the company won't collapse just because she leaves, still feeling he's being too forward. Joy looks at him with a gentle, knowing smile. Holding her cup, she calls his support amazing and sincerely thanks him. Back at their desks, Max shouts that he's fixed the bug, startling Joy. He proudly shows her the working screen, and she asks in amazement how he did it. He gives her credit, explaining it was the library version issue she had pointed out earlier. Having confirmed the fix, he eagerly asks if they can finally go home now. Joy informs him that she's already submitted the QA request, but will need to check other libraries tomorrow. She gazes at him with a warm, appreciative smile. She calls his name to get his attention, and he looks over. With a bright smile, Joy proposes they form a job switch study group together. Max can only stare back, completely stunned into silence by her offer. His mind reels in utter confusion, wondering what she could possibly be talking about. Utterly flustered by the idea, he stares at his phone, feeling sick to his stomach. Her shocking proposal to start a, quote, job change study group echoes in his mind. He continues to stare into space, completely unable to process her words. Desperate for an out, he frantically searches his phone for how to politely decline someone. Inspired by an article, he resolves to be bold and take control of the situation. A coworker with glasses startles him from behind, asking if he's busy. She points out his dark circles and asks why he is so jumpy, while he defensively asks what she wants. The coworker explains that their boss, Donald, is calling and leads him toward meeting room 3 for a private chat. Creek Max warily enters the meeting room, unsure of what to expect. Inside, team leader Han Do-kyung of Donald Commerce greets him with a smile, noting his recent hard work. He offers Max a cup of chamomile tea. Team leader Han knowingly remarks that Max doesn't drink caffeine. He brings up how Max handled an issue for Andy the day before. He then mentions Max also covering Patrick's deployment, as Max silently wonders where this is all going. With a sharp look, the team leader speculates that perhaps Max is thinking about changing jobs. Cough. Max chokes on his tea as his boss awkwardly says he was just joking. Leaning in with a sly grin, team leader Han says he has a minor proposal for Max. His boss dangles the ultimate bait, a salary renegotiation, leaving Max utterly stunned. Team leader Han explains this is a reward for employees who persevered after the team lost so many people last year. Clenching his fist, Max wonders if this is real, as his boss reveals the CEO has already approved it. The team leader smugly states that retaining skilled employees is more important than hiring new ones, as Max looks on, dumbfounded. With a wink, team leader Han stresses that this is strictly confidential, and Max nervously agrees. Taking his silence as a yes, the team leader presents a corporate card, much to Max's confusion. He instructs Max to take his coworker out for an expensive meal as a reward for yesterday, leaving Max to question. Together? The team leader confirms he means Joy, the person who worked with him yesterday, and Max grits his teeth in frustration. He praises Joy as a talent snagged from another team, suggesting they need to take care of her since she had no proper handover. With a disturbingly wide grin, the boss declares Joy and Max the reliable future of the team. Because of that conversation, Joy now looks over at Max with a questioning gaze. Feeling immense pressure, Max reluctantly approaches Joy with a corporate card, asking where she'd like to eat. He stammers before Joy, wishing he could just spend the money on himself instead of this awkwardness. As Joy pulls out her phone with a cute case, Max is left completely bewildered. Joy lists her packed schedule for the next few days, leaving Max utterly defeated and wondering what he's supposed to do. A paranoid thought strikes him. Maybe this is a signal to just take the corporate card and disappear forever. Just then, Joy smiles brightly and suggests they have dinner together later. The scene shifts to a warmly lit restaurant that evening. Seated at the table, Max is silent and visibly uncomfortable. Joy cheerfully remarks that they were lucky to get a table, mentioning she's been here before with Esther. She pours a drink, adding they have unfinished business from yesterday and lunch had too many eyes, while Max inwardly despairs. As Joy anxiously scans the menu for the most expensive item, she asks Max if he drinks, and he requests a zero cola. She ignores him and confidently orders for them both, leaving Max to wonder when his opinion stopped mattering. Closing the menu with a thud, Joy starts the conversation with a determined, "So?" She leans in and asks if he's thought about her offer to start a job change study group. Max remains silent, his mind filled with thoughts of endless overtime and the vicious cycle of his work. With a sparkle in her eye, Joy says she figured he must be considering changing jobs too. He can't deny it. She's not wrong, as job hopping has always been on his mind. His boss's words about retaining skilled employees flash through his mind, revealing the company's trap. He recalls the warning that the salary negotiation was confidential, paralyzing him with indecision. Joy speculates that many developers at their company are likely considering a job change. Finally finding his voice, Max demands to know her reason for choosing him. He presses her, asking directly, "Why did you choose me?" She flashes a brilliant smile, exclaiming it's because he's her complete opposite. Max is left utterly confused by her answer. As the meat sizzles, she asks about his morning habit of refactoring code, making him wonder if she checked his history. She clarifies that she simply noticed his year-long consistency, concluding he's someone who genuinely enjoys refining code. A flashback shows her admiring his code, noting how his clear comments make it easy for anyone to understand. She says his kindness and slow, solid work ethic are evident in his code, making her reflect on herself. With shining eyes, she declares she wants to be like him and learn from his strengths. Her sincere praise leaves Max speechless. His mind flashes back to a coworker criticizing him for refactoring instead of doing other support tasks. He then remembers another coworker telling him to just do his work roughly, as no one cared about refactoring. Overwhelmed, Max quietly wonders if he truly has any strengths at all. Joy excitedly announces there's one more reason, and he hesitantly asks what it is. She says it's because he wouldn't cross the line, leaving him confused and wondering if she's drunk. She tries to explain, asking him not to take it the wrong way. She describes how study groups can sometimes attract people with ulterior motives. With a bright smile, she assures him she knows he's not like that as he quietly sips his drink. She finishes by saying he doesn't seem like the type to suddenly confess his feelings, leaving him completely baffled. At home, Dong-gu gulps down a soda, steeling himself for the night. The scene transitions to his apartment building under a full moon. Arriving home late, he announces his return to his mother. His mother asks if he's eaten, but he wearily brushes off her concern. A warm shower washes away some of the day's fatigue. After his shower, he reflects that his usual routine of gaming and watching videos feels unappealing. Just as he wonders what to do, a message from Joy pops up on his phone. Reading Joy's message asking him to let her know his decision by tomorrow, he sits lost in thought. He quietly contemplates her message, feeling the pressure mount. He recalls Joy teasingly saying he doesn't seem like the type to confess his feelings. Her words leave him feeling strangely uncomfortable, despite being a compliment. Looking at her photo, he wonders if he's overthinking her use of the word confess. He continues to stare at his phone, unable to shake his thoughts. Oh ho! Suddenly, a woman peeks over the couch, startling him. Startled, he quickly tries to explain to his sister that the gorgeous girl on his phone is just a coworker. His sister sits up, sternly reminding him of her long-standing advice. Kang Soo-won, his older sister and a veteran of 2 office romances, warns him to never date a coworker. Dong-gu protests, but she bluntly tells him Joy is out of his league, making him groan in frustration. Kang Soo-won flops onto the couch and brings up her first job change to make a point. He's surprised to learn she was part of a study group to prepare for her career move. She asks if he's considering quitting, but he nervously says he's just looking at his options. She mockingly calls him antisocial, and he internally seethes, wondering if he should kill her. Changing her tune, she seriously recommends he join a job change study group, leaving him confused. She explains that having side projects for a portfolio is always a good idea. Grabbing his head, she insists it's best to be prepared for a quick escape from a bad job, as he tells her to let go. As a final warning, she reminds him absolutely no office romance, which he finds gross. The next day, the scene shifts to the towering office buildings of their workplace. In a team meeting, a senior colleague announces they will need developer support for their timeline. Exhausted from a sleepless night, Max rubs his eyes. His colleague, Patrick, cheerfully tells Max he's counting on his support, much to Max's confusion. Dazed, Max tries to recall what they were talking about as Patrick puts a hand on his shoulder. Patrick gives a thumbs up, complaining he's swamped, while Max silently fumes at being dumped on again. Patrick ropes Max into helping him, telling another colleague that's what good juniors do, while she offers to get Max coffee. As his junior praises him, Patrick clenches his fist, internally fuming that she still doesn't know he doesn't drink coffee. Max flashes back to a time Joy thoughtfully brought him decaf coffee and a small candy. In his memory, she leans in to thank him for supporting their lazy senior. She had told him that his code reflects his kindness. He remembers her saying, "That's why you're Max," defining his thoughtful reputation. Pulled from his memory, Max remains silent, his expression unreadable. Later, Joy sits at her desk, enjoying a quick energy supplement. While eating, she looks at her phone with a curious, questioning expression. The scene shifts to a bright day filled with blooming cherry blossoms. Max and Joy sit together on a park bench under the beautiful trees. He tells her he will join the job change study group, and she looks at him in genuine surprise. He clarifies that he's not desperate but thinks it's smart to be prepared. He explains he wants a backup plan for salary negotiations, and she sighs in relief, admitting she thought he'd refuse. He quietly reaffirms that it's always better to have a backup plan. He watches Joy, admiring how her energy seems to give a boost to everyone around her. He reflects that in this way she is the complete opposite of him. As if feeling his gaze, Joy turns her head, her hair gently blowing in the wind. Max sits in stunned silence on the park bench, completely bewildered by her strange reasoning. He considers her offer, thinking that maybe if he sticks around her, he could finally change a little too. After a moment of thought, he clears his throat, having made up his mind. He asks where they should start, wondering about the logistics of the job change study group and a side project. As he asks about the time and place, Joy listens with a gentle, patient smile. She cheerfully replies, admitting she hasn't thought about any of the details yet. Max stares at his phone, completely aghast at her lack of planning. He looks at her bright, carefree face and seriously questions whether he can actually trust this person. The chapter ends with a title card featuring Joy and the subtitle Select. A new scene begins as a woman with light-colored hair thanks a barista and picks up 2 iced Americanos. She exits the coffee shop, drinks in hand. She stops in her tracks, noticing Max and Joy walking together up the stairs into the building. Holding her coffees, she watches them silently with a thoughtful expression. Her inner thought identifies them, wondering, Joy and Max. 2 days later, Max recalls his decision to join the job change study group. He explains that he and Joy decided to meet at the company's first-floor cafe to plan ahead. Taking a sip of his coffee, he asks Joy what happened to all the interviews she had marked on her calendar. Joy casually explains that while she passed most of them, she turned them all down and canceled her other appointments. Surprised, Max asks her why, and she declares with resolve that she's trying to aim higher. She specifies her ideal new job, a trendy but well-established company, like a billion-dollar startup. After mentioning the higher salary, she cheerfully asks Max what kind of company he wants to move to. Max looks away, admitting he's not sure yet, and hopes to figure it out through their study group. Leaning forward with her cat paw stylus, Joy says she's curious about something. With a sly, sparkling smile, she wonders where Max will be working a year from now. Max tries to regain his composure, telling himself her words are just a polite remark. He attempts to get back on track, listing the things they need to decide, like their side project concept. Suddenly, the woman from the cafe leans over his shoulder, startling him by asking, "What study group?" A pop-up identifies the coworker as Esther, a UX/UI designer who looks at them with innocent curiosity. Max stammers nervously, panicking over how much she could have possibly heard. He desperately looks toward Joy, hoping she can come up with a cover story. To his horror, he finds Joy completely frozen and unable to speak. Esther surprises Max by saying she thought he just played single-player games after work, striking a critical hit to his composure. Internally fuming, Max forces a smile and mutters that self-improvement is important. Esther notes that she's never seen him working at a cafe before, as Max internally screams that he needs to get out of there. Max quickly makes an excuse to leave while Joy invites Esther to the convenience store, and she agrees. Just as he's escaping, Esther calls out Max, making him stop. She kindly offers to grab him something, but he nervously declines as the episode comes to a close. The next day, with the design approved, the team just needs to check specifics on certain features. Working together, Esther points out the product search area and suggests implementing debouncing to handle the number of API calls. As chatter fills the office, Esther assigns the browser-side work to Joy and asks Max to check if indexing is necessary. Unable to focus, Max is consumed by the thought of what Esther might have overheard at the cafe yesterday. He panics at the idea of the rumor spreading, imagining Esther whispering about it. Esther asks if the task is difficult, and Max quickly reassures her it's doable, impressed by her knowledge of development terms. Esther watches him from her desk, a quiet, thoughtful look on her face. Getting his attention, she calls his name, making him turn around questioningly. She leans in close and whispers that she saw him coming in with Joy. She continues her observation, noting their unusual cafe trip and recent late nights, sending Max into a cold sweat. With a bright, knowing smile, Esther asks if he's interested in Joy too, leaving him utterly shocked. "Absolutely not," he shouts internally, as Esther expresses her surprise, saying she thought he had joined the competition for Joy like everyone else. Esther whispers that Joy is very popular, explaining many have tried to get close to her only to be rejected. Wondering just how popular Joy is, Max learns from Esther that at least 4 people confessed, and some even quit afterward, which he finds terrifying. With a determined glint in his eye, Max declares that work is for working, and dismisses such emotional games as pointless. He reflects that this strict work-only mindset was drilled into him by his sister, marking another failed office romance attempt. Trying to steer the conversation back to work, Max asks Esther if there are any other issues, but she remains silent. Snapping out of her thoughts, Esther wishes him a drama-free afternoon and leaves him a lucky red ginseng candy, which he accepts. Chewing the candy, Max grumbles to himself that even good luck charms can't stop him from having to work overtime. Later, Joy approaches Max's desk and asks if he's leaving. He explains he has about 2 more hours of work due to Patrick's request. Joy suggests they get some air on the rooftop. On the rooftop, they agree to meet for their study group twice a week on weekday evenings, saving weekends for rest. They decide to meet at a station 1 stop away from the office, which is convenient for both of them. Snap. Joey takes a couple of photos, remembering he lives near Ori Station. Agreeing to do progress check-ins online after deciding on a project, they briefly admire the nice evening sky. Max falls into a quiet, pensive silence. Noticing his silence, Joy asks if he really thinks they can pull this off. He considers the difficulty of juggling a demanding job, frequent overtime, and preparing for a job change on top of it all. Looking out at the evening sky, he resolves that it certainly won't be easy. Joy smiles reassuringly, reminding him that's precisely why they're doing it together. Her earnest words seem to catch him off guard, leaving him momentarily speechless. In the elevator, Joy apologizes for keeping him late, but Max points out that she's also staying past her shift. Leaning in close, Joy suddenly suggests they use nicknames outside of the office, startling Max. She explains that Joy and Max sounds too formal and suggests using their real names, to which he hesitantly agrees. She calls him by his real name, Donggu, leaving him wide-eyed with shock. She explains that she's heard Patrick use the name, but Max internally panics at how strange it sounds coming from her. When she asks for his surname, he stammers Kang, and she confirms his full name, Kang Donggu. Joy reacts with exaggerated shock, making a pun about his name, but he flatly states he's from Seongnam. As the elevator arrives, she comments that his real name is more memorable, while he internally wishes she would just go home. They stand in an awkward silence inside the elevator. Whoosh! As the doors open, he wonders why time feels so incredibly slow today. Joy calls out his name, Donggu, getting his attention. She turns to him, playfully asking if he isn't going to ask for her real name in return. He admits that, since she brought it up, he is a little curious. With a teasing smile, she refuses to tell him, leaving him flustered and wondering if she's just messing with him. He counters by reminding her he can just look it up on the company's emergency contact list, which seems to surprise her. He confidently turns to leave the elevator. A smug smile crosses his face as he relishes his small victory. Grrr. In a fit of childish rage, he shoves his phone in her face, asking, "How about this?" He reveals he's changed her contact photo to a picture of food with her face pasted on it, thinking he's being clever. She winks, promises to change it back, and suggests they use a personal messenger, since the companies can be monitored by admins. Annoyed but determined, he shoves his phone's dial pad at her, insisting they exchange numbers right now. She agrees with a smile, saying she'll contact him, and he wearily accepts. Later that night in his apartment, Max looks at his phone. He pulls up her new contact information, revealing her real name is Jang Charin. He hesitates before saving her contact, taking in her real name. He realizes this is the first time he's ever exchanged personal numbers with a coworker. Swiping through her pictures reveals another photo of a colorful drink. He reflects that they live in completely different worlds and would never have connected if not for their job. The elevator doors close on Joy, who gives him a bright, parting smile. The chapter ends with a title card for episode 7, subtitled Charin Blossoms. Looking at his phone, he reads messages from Jang Charin, setting up their first project meeting for Monday. He considers the weekend assignment, thinking that looking for side project ideas might actually be fun. Back in the office, Patrick offers to buy Joy coffee, but she politely declines, needing to check her emails. A colleague, Jung Junho, whose nickname is Jaden, tells her to take it easy since working hard won't get her extra pay. As Donggu walks past, he silently judges Jaden's mindset, while Jaden keeps talking to Joy. He's taken aback when Joy suddenly suggests bringing Max along too. Jaden whispers to Joy that Max can't handle caffeine well and that they should be considerate. Joy looks flustered, while Donggu silently watches the awkward exchange. Annoyed, Donggu makes a snap decision. He reluctantly orders a decaf Americano, internally questioning why he's even bothering. At the cafe, Jaden asks Joy if she's seen the cherry blossoms, but she replies that she's been too busy. As Jaden suggests a popular spot, Donggu internally groans that their obvious flirting is making him sick. Jaden offers to take her to see the blossoms or to a nearby stream if she's free. Joy ignores Jaden's offer by looking at her phone, much to Donggu's exasperation. Donggu mentally suggests a nice spot near her station, but quickly tells himself to get a grip since no one asked. He continues his thought, remembering it's a quiet walk he hasn't had time for, just as Joy looks up from her phone. Jaden scoffs that hotspots are better, just as their coffee buzzer goes off. As the coffee is announced, Joy quickly stands up to get it, eager for an escape. Jaden is left looking flustered as Donggu gives him a knowing side-eye. Jaden remarks that Max must be pretty close with Joy, while Donggu regrets ever coming downstairs. Later, Joy approaches Donggu's desk, teasing that he missed the cherry blossoms she saw with Esther because he was eating alone. He grumbles that he's working late for their study group, thinking she's developing a taste for teasing him. With a determined look, she clenches her fist. What, he asks, nervously recognizing her gesture from before. The moment she touches his hand, a magical shower of cherry blossom petals appears around them. The glowing pink petals swirl gracefully through the air. He stares, shocked, as the petals fall to the floor, and she wishes him a nice weekend before leaving. He asks her to pick up the petals that fell on the floor as she walks away. A flashback replays his private thoughts about the quiet cherry blossom spot near her home. He's stunned, realizing with dawning horror that she somehow heard his thoughts. She pauses mid-stride, turning back just a little. Slumping over his desk in defeat, he weakly wishes Charon a nice weekend. She turns back with a brilliant smile and a cheerful, "Fighting!" as she waves goodbye. He checks his watch, deciding that's more than enough excitement for one day. Leaving with plans for the weekend, he's dismayed to find the elevator is out for maintenance. He hears someone crying in the stairwell and mutters in frustration, wishing they'd just talk it out. Removing an earbud, he strains to hear the argument unfolding below. He peeks over the railing and sees a man and a woman arguing. He recognizes the man as a planning manager who's telling the woman his feelings for her are gone. As the man says a relationship ends when one side cools off, Donggu ducks out of sight, realizing he knows the woman too. The man desperately pleads, "Yen, say something," causing Donggu to freeze in shock. He recognizes the woman as Esther, who bitterly asks if she's being made out to be the bad guy again. Donggu watches the intense drama, sweating nervously. He stares at the woman, confirming that it's definitely Esther. Deciding not to get involved, he realizes he has to pass them to get out of the building. He tries to sneak back upstairs but fumbles and drops his earbud case. The small case clatters down the concrete stairs, echoing in the quiet stairwell. It lands right at the couple's feet, and Donggu panics, his cover completely blown. Pow! The man violently kicks the railing in a sudden outburst of anger. Having fled back up the stairs, Donggu leans against a door, panting heavily after his narrow escape. Overwhelmed by the day's events, Max lets out a weary sigh. His dismay deepens as he finds the elevator is under inspection, wondering what he did to deserve this. After waiting outside for 20 minutes, he checks his watch, hoping things have quieted down. Seeing the lit exit sign, he decides it's finally safe to take the emergency stairs. As he walks, a sepia-toned image of a woman with light-colored hair flashes in his mind. A bead of sweat drips down his face as he steels himself for the descent. Creak. He opens the stairwell door only to find a woman inside, internally groaning that people who date at work are the worst. Startled to find her still there, he panics and stammers an awkward greeting. The woman explains she found an earbud on the stairs and was going to drop it off at the office, as he internally realizes it's his. Deciding to retrieve it later, he watches as she says she'll head in first. Just as he's about to leave, she suddenly grabs his wrist, surprising him. Holding up the earbud, she notices he has the matching one in his ear and realizes with a shock that it's his. She asks why he's only wearing one, and he nervously claims it's his style. An uncomfortable silence hangs between them in the stairwell. He tries to make a quick exit, but she calls out, stopping him. With an unexpectedly bright smile, she asks where he thinks he's going. Grab. She tightens her grip on his wrist as he inwardly pleads for mercy. The chapter concludes with a title card for episode 8, Hard Day, featuring the woman from the stairwell. In a new scene, the woman firmly holds a juice box. Now sitting at a convenience store, she confides that she's actually glad Max witnessed her embarrassing moment. She explains she trusts him because he's quiet and professional, then asks if he's being forced to sit with her, which he denies. Thud. Overwhelmed with frustration, he internally screams about her question and just wants to go home. She slumps onto the table, mortified by the situation, leaving him speechless. After lamenting being dumped in front of a coworker, she asks if she should just jump, but he awkwardly suggests she go home. She begins to recount the breakup, explaining her ex called her clingy and burdensome, which catches Max by surprise. She details how she stayed late and even changed her morning routine just for him. Continuing her story, she adds that she stopped talking to other male coworkers because he didn't like it. Hearing the extent of her efforts, Max finds himself completely at a loss for words. She reveals she even turned down a great job offer, just so they wouldn't have to be apart. Max questions whether offering clumsy comfort is better than saying nothing at all in such a difficult situation. She finishes her tale, saying her ex broke up with her by claiming office dating just doesn't suit him. Clenching his can, Max silently resolves not to give a thoughtless response. He decides he can't offer empty words and should only say what he can take responsibility for. He quietly promises not to tell anyone, and she looks up at him, surprised by his sincerity. He gently encourages her to go home for the day and not to worry. She looks at him silently, taking in his words. She holds out her pinky, silently asking for a promise. She playfully urges him to hurry and lock the promise, and he reluctantly agrees. As she gets into a taxi, she suggests they become friends, but he bluntly refuses, and she pouts. Snap. Relieved to finally be leaving, he snaps a photo of her taxi's license plate. The taxi speeds away into the night. Inside the taxi, the woman watches him go with a quiet, pensive expression. The scene shifts to an apartment building under the light of a full moon. Back in his apartment, Max collapses, utterly exhausted by the long and eventful day. His sister, fresh from a shower, teases him about working late for overtime, but he explains their pay is all-inclusive. She then asks him to go on an open run for a new dessert cafe, annoying him with her casual request. She suggests he enjoy the pretty cherry blossoms while he's out, making him clench his fist in frustration. A final sepia-toned image shows hands being held as cherry blossom petals fall gently around them. Reluctantly giving in, Max agrees to go to the cafe for his sister, who is ecstatic. The sun shines brightly, marking the start of a new day. He arrives at the trendy dessert cafe to find a massive line of people already waiting outside. Pausing, he takes a moment to admire a photo of beautiful cherry blossoms he took on his way over. Annoyed by the long wait, he realizes his sister sent him here precisely because she didn't want to queue. While grumbling about his wasted Saturday morning, his phone suddenly buzzes, catching his attention. His phone rings with an incoming call from his coworker Joy, whose real name is Jang Charin. Stunned by the unexpected call, he stares at his phone in complete confusion. The call connects to Shireen, who cheerfully says she was wondering what contact name he saved her under. Her phone screen reveals she saved his number under the teasing nickname Local Seongnam Boy Dongji Yu. Wham! He turns around in shock to find Shireen standing right behind him, playfully showing him her phone. Flustered and sweating, Max is at a complete loss for words. Charon smiles brightly, teasing that he must have a real love for desserts. Inside, Shireen picks out desserts and correctly guesses he's on an errand for his sister, calling their relationship sweet. She explains that she lives nearby and thought of him when she heard about the event, which reminds him of their conversation. When she mentions taking photos of the pretty Tanchian cherry blossoms, he has a sudden realization. He connects the dots. She lives near Jongja Station, which is close to the beautiful cherry blossoms at Tanchian. He briefly wonders if she came because of him, but quickly dismisses the idea, telling himself not to overthink. Charon asks Donggu if he's eaten and invites him to lunch, but he lies that he's meeting his parents, claiming he hates eating alone. He nervously denies her teasing accusation, and she laughs it off, saying she'll see him next week. A little later, he checks his family group chat and learns his sister is in the ER after slipping, canceling their family dinner. He stares at the messages, dumbfounded by the turn of events. The scene shifts to a local eatery called Our Neighborhood Snacks. Now eating alone, he receives his food and starts to regret not having lunch with her. HMPH. As he eats, he grumbles to himself that she probably would have paid, kicking himself for missing out. Trying to reassure himself, he thinks eating alone like this is much better, picturing her walking away. He freezes mid-bite, a look of dawning horror on his face. A quick shot shows Shirin looking surprised. Her expression hardens into a silent, disappointed glare. He realizes with dread that she was at the same snack shop and saw him eating alone right after he lied. Outside the shop, he curses his terrible luck at being caught. The chapter ends with a title card for episode 9, aptly subtitled Parsing Error. Back at the office on Monday, he notices Shirin is unusually quiet, and he's sure he knows why. He glares, convinced that she's sulking because of what happened. In her mind, Shirin worries that he thinks she deliberately ignored him at the cafe. He frets over how to fix the misunderstanding, wondering if explaining is too much. Hiding in the break room, he groans about dealing with workplace emotions and wishes for a vacation. His despair deepens as he remembers their first study group session is scheduled for today. Ah, crap. He collapses in misery, startling a coworker in the snack aisle. He considers faking overtime to postpone the study group as he walks past Patrick's desk. His plan is foiled when a cheerful Patrick thanks him for his past work and tells him to leave on time, making Max fume internally. Mustering his courage, he decides to clear the air and approaches Joy's desk to explain about the weekend. Just as he starts to speak, another coworker interrupts, pulling Joy into an urgent meeting because Esther is out. When asked if he needed something, Max dejectedly gives up, claiming it was nothing. He looks out at the towering office building, groaning that this whole situation is driving him crazy. Later, they arrive at a cafe called a Onesome Place for their study session. Over cake and coffee, they begin by comparing their ideas for a side project, choosing a cafe to remain discreet. They acknowledge that this independent project offers a valuable learning experience they can't get at their regular job. As Joy suggests they build a dating app and calls out to a distracted Donggu, he seems lost in thought. She calls his name again, much louder this time, startling him out of his trance. At a cafe, Joy notes that Donggu seems really tired and wasn't focused at the office today. P.F. He spits out his drink in shock, as she asks if it's because she saw him eating alone on Saturday. Panicking, he stammers for a moment before simply apologizing. Joy explains that her high-energy, outgoing personality can sometimes overwhelm people. She recalls asking him to eat together and apologizes, realizing she might have made him uncomfortable. Confused by her apology, he quickly starts typing on his phone. To prove he wasn't avoiding her, he shows her his chaotic family group chat explaining his sister's accident and the canceled dinner plans. He clarifies that he was alone because of a last-minute family emergency. Joy asks why he did not just call or message her, but he hesitates, thinking it would have been weird to contact her on the weekend. She presses him about not telling her at the office, and he explains that she seemed busy all day. Thwack! Declaring it a mutual fault, she slaps her hand on the table, but she then playfully points out that he, Donggu, is a little more at fault, leaving him stunned. She passionately exclaims that she worried all weekend about their interaction. She continues explaining her worries, and he realizes she overthinks things more than she lets on. After he apologizes again, she cheekily tells him to buy her food, and he nervously suggests chicken. Ding! Just as she says she likes chicken, her phone gets a notification. He's already sent her a gift coupon for fried chicken. Both flustered, she asks if it's not a good menu choice, while they both look away nervously. She smiles brightly, saying it's her favorite, and thanking him for the meal. Relieved, he smiles back as she gives a knowing glance. The first day of the study group concludes as they leave the cafe. The scene transitions to the towering office buildings. Yawning, Donggu walks through the office hallway, tired after a hectic weekend and Monday. Their team leader, Mickey, looks on admiringly, praising the commerce team's hard work. Mickey reassures Donggu and Esther not to feel pressured, as the real work begins in 3 weeks, much to Donggu's annoyance. She gestures openly, offering to answer any questions they might have. She tells them to direct their questions to Andrew, who is identified as Esther's ex. Tap tap. While Esther cheerfully agrees, Donggu clenches his jaw in anger beside her. He begins typing furiously, channeling his silent rage into his work. His fingers fly across the keyboard, typing absolute gibberish out of frustration. He pauses, staring at his blank laptop screen, still processing the awkward situation. He reflects on Esther quitting over a breakup, unable to understand why, since they don't even work on the same team. He recalls Esther's pained expression from the stairwell, admitting he doesn't get it. He grimaces, annoyed with the entire situation. He pinches his own cheeks, sternly telling himself to mind his own business. With renewed determination, he resolves that his only role is to stay silent. Wah! He jumps in shock as Esther suddenly appears and asks what he's doing. The scene shifts as she leads him to a convenience store. Ta-da! Esther offers to buy him anything as payback, and he internally wonders if it's a bribe for his silence. He picks up a sandwich, figuring he'll save on lunch, and then asks about the message she sent earlier. Esther cryptically says that if you don't like the temple, the monk should leave, then mentions she has a meeting with Donald tomorrow. She gasps, covering her mouth in sudden shock. Dong-gu is stunned by her sudden decision to quit. Shh. She quickly puts a finger to his lips, hushing him as they see someone nearby. It's Andrew, on the phone, telling someone to keep his breakup a secret for now, shocking Dong-gu. Andrew clarifies that he's Esther's ex-boyfriend and that they just broke up, so he needs to feign reflection for a bit. As Andrew walks off, discussing social media posts, Esther collapses to the floor in silent despair. Dong-gu watches her, a silent understanding passing between them as he finally grasps her pain. A title card introduces episode 10, subtitled Line. A title card introduces episode 10, subtitled Line. In a new scene, Max and a female coworker sit in somber silence at a rest stop. The woman, Esther, apologizes for rushing out earlier, saying she'd meant to treat him, but he reassures her it's fine. Spotting a vending machine, he offers to buy a drink, but she declines, saying she'll only drink a zero-calorie option. Thunk. She buys a bottle of water from the machine instead. Now both holding water, she remarks it's her first time getting bottled water from a vending machine. In a flashback, Esther's ex-boyfriend admits on the phone that he sort of knew about something she'd asked about earlier. Stunned, Max asks if she kept seeing him even knowing he was cheating, but she clarifies it was more like rebounding with a close female friend from his old job. She explains she always had suspicions, but lacked any real proof, squeezing her water bottle in frustration. She reveals she followed the other woman's social media and saw her post a bouquet from a restaurant Esther herself had recommended, just 2 days after the breakup. With a look of grim resolve, she chugs her water. She asks him to pretend he didn't hear anything this time either. Calling him Max, she casually mentions their pinky promise, which catches him off guard. She looks at him with a gentle, knowing smile. He awkwardly agrees, looking away. He reflects that while silence is the best form of consideration, the situation still feels frustrating. Back at his desk, Max taps his fingers, internally wrestling with his frustration over the unresolved situation. A brunette coworker notices his mood, asking if anything is wrong and offering him a sugar recharge. He stares silently at the candy she placed on his desk. The brunette coworker privately reflects that it's irresponsible to meddle in someone else's choices. She immediately regrets her words, thinking she sounded idiotic, as Max watches her, confused. Pulling herself together, she tells Max that it's okay for him to express his honest feelings. Max recalls a past moment, remembering how he once told Joy he admired the way she never settles. He remembers her pointing out that he never really offered his own advice or opinions back then. He listens quietly, lost in thought. The scene shifts to the women's restroom at the office. Inside, a phone left on the counter next to a makeup bag begins to light up. A message from Max appears on the screen, asking to talk privately for a moment. Meeting in the stairwell, Esther playfully asks if he's bored and wants to slack off for coffee. She starts walking up the stairs, but Max remains behind, silent. Noticing he hasn't followed, she turns and quietly asks his name. He finally speaks, telling Esther he doesn't understand why she's the one leaving the company when her ex was the one in the wrong. Surprised by his directness, she asks where this is coming from as he prepares to explain. He clarifies that while getting hurt is one thing, he just doesn't understand why she has to be the one to take the loss. Esther listens to his words in stunned silence. She recalls the painful memory of her ex walking away at the office, confessing that her heart dropped every time she saw him. She explains her routine of breaking down in a different restroom, fixing her makeup, and returning to her desk as if nothing happened. Ultimately, she began to question if she could even continue working there. As Max listens, his coworker's words about expressing honest feelings echo in his mind, encouraging him to fight. Clenching his arm, he tells her that while the decision is hers, he has something to say. He says he hates that the shameless, selfish guy gets to benefit from her sacrifice. He concludes by saying he just hopes she ends up doing better than him in every way possible. Touched and confused, she asks why he's going out of his way to tell her all this. He explains that he simply believes she's very good at her job, and that her skills are rare. A brief, quiet moment focuses on the necklace Esther is wearing. Sniffle. He hears a soft sound and looks toward her, confused. He's shocked to see tears streaming down her face. Completely bewildered, he stares at her, at a loss for what just happened. He panics internally, wondering if he did something wrong as he awkwardly tries to get her attention. Overwhelmed with embarrassment, he inwardly screams about how annoying the situation has become. She explains it's annoying because his comforting words scared her, leaving her feeling vulnerable. He looks away, sourly muttering, 2 weeks. As she walks off, Esther declares she'll resign in 2 weeks if she still feels the same, leaving Max stunned. She turns back with a playful wink, cheerfully asking if they should head back up. Flustered, he reluctantly agrees. Walking back, he sighs with relief, thinking he can finally focus on work again. As they near the office, they see a group of coworkers waiting by the door. One of the coworkers spots them together, and Max and Esther freeze in shock at being caught. One female coworker turns away in embarrassment, while another looks on, confused by the scene. The other coworkers, including Patrick, stare in awkward silence, unsure what's happening. The coworker tries to break the tension by suggesting a cafe, but Esther quickly flees, leaving Max to face them alone. When asked about Max, another coworker blurts out that he can't have caffeine, trapping him as Max fumes internally. Making a quick excuse about work, Max escapes the awkward situation. The coworker watches him leave with a pensive look on her face. A title card announces Episode 11, subtitled Boundary, as the clock on a desk reads 3:10. At his desk, Max finds himself unable to focus, though his fingers type on autopilot. He imagines his coworkers gossiping about him and Esther at the cafe. His anxiety spirals as he pictures them calling him a creepy stalker who confessed to her. He freezes, realizing he has no idea what he would even say to defend himself. His wild imagination pictures him bragging about teaching Esther a lesson, and he cringes at how insane it sounds. He tries to calm down, telling himself that people probably don't care that much about his business. Just then, Patrick pops over the partition, asking if something is going on between him and Esther, causing Max to panic. While Max plays dumb, Patrick reveals he saw Esther crying earlier, shocking Max. Patrick cheerfully guesses they just fought over a delayed file, and Max silently fumes at his loud speculation. Feeling everyone's eyes on him, including Joy's, Max realizes he has to say something to clear the air. Esther suddenly asks Joy to postpone a meeting, claiming she needs to run to the pharmacy, which makes Joy ask if she is sick. Winking, Esther claims she just needs eye drops for dry eyes, privately admitting she was crying. Esther then loudly thanks Max for helping her find her access card, and he awkwardly plays along. Patrick teases that he thought something was going on, as Esther gives a subtle, satisfied smile. Max nervously laughs off the misunderstanding, breathing a sigh of relief that he survived. Joy watches the entire exchange with a quiet, unreadable expression. Later at a coffee shop, Max reflects on how he's been wasting his emotions for no reason. Looking at his order ticket, he resolves to avoid getting unnecessarily involved with coworkers from now on. He thinks specifically of Esther and Joy, deciding he needs to keep his distance from them in particular. A memory of Joy's face flashes through his mind. As his order is called, he picks up his tea, feeling stressed out by the mere thought of everything. Holding his drink, he turns from the counter, hoping to finally calm down. Kia. He's startled to find Joy standing right there, greeting him with a smile. Stunned, he asks why she's there, and she playfully questions why he bought tea he could have made at the office. He explains he needed fresh air, and Joy says she rushed over to use a dessert coupon that expires soon. Joy gives him a knowing, slightly mischievous smile. Internally debating, he decides to leave first, but Joy has other plans. She cheerfully insists they go back together, much to his internal dismay. While walking, she brings up the upcoming company dinner and asks if he'll be there. He stays silent as she glances at him, and he looks away, confused. As they walk past a building, Joy calls his name to get his attention. She gently asks if he still feels a little awkward around her. He's taken aback, asking what she means by such a sudden question. She points out that he calls Esther by her nickname, but always uses a formal honorific when saying her name. He quietly processes this, wondering if it's true, as she smiles and says she was just curious. Max thinks back, admitting that when Joy first told him to drop the honorifics, it felt very awkward. Max thinks back, admitting that when Joy first told him to drop the honorifics, it felt very awkward. Joy explains that since she, Patrick, and Max are in the same role, they need to communicate frequently. Max explains that he keeps formalities in their titles to reduce the chance of making mistakes while talking. Joy interprets his meaning, asking if he maintains more distance with people he's closer to. He agrees, though her reaction puzzles him. As they walk, Max continues his explanation, adding that because they're in a study group together, he considers Joy to be the closest person to him at the company. Joy looks at him, seemingly surprised by his heartfelt admission. A single leaf flutters down as the sun shines through the trees. Max sips his drink, silently waiting for her to respond. Whoosh! The wind rustles the leaves as Max thinks that her reaction is not what he expected. Joy finds his reasoning surprisingly deep and interesting. A promotional image shows a smiling woman with red eyes and dark clothes, followed by a repeat of Joy's intrigued expression. The panel repeats, emphasizing that Joy finds his explanation more interesting than expected. Panicked, Max internally questions what could possibly be interesting about his reasoning. Joy laughs it off, saying she was just curious and that they should head back, while a flustered Max agrees. Swoosh! As he walks, Max reflects that if he were younger and less self-aware, he might have misread the situation. He thinks of a certain type of person, someone kind to everyone and curious about everything. He recalls being told that it's better for one's mental health to just let certain comments go and not overthink them. Decisively, he puts on his headphones to block everything out. A well-dressed man, with dark-styled hair, walks confidently into the office. A coworker greets the man as Ace and praises his hard work, leaving Max to look on with a confused expression. The coworker chats with the man about his wedding photos, while Max watches them with a subtle glare from his desk. An introduction card reveals the man's nickname is Leo, and he has just returned to headquarters after a 9-month assignment. The coworker invites Leo to a team dinner, which he happily accepts, as Max notes his apparent social skills. Leo approaches Joy's desk and playfully asks why she hasn't greeted him. Surprised, Joy comments on his new hairstyle, as Max realizes Leo and Joy must be close, having joined the company together. Addressing Max by name, Leo says he's heard good things about his work and notes that he sits next to Joy. Leo teases Joy for being messy with snacks and asks Max to take care of her, but she shoos him away, telling him to stop bothering a working Max. Joy reassures Max that Leo is always like that, while Max internally identifies him as a classic, shameless extrovert. Leo laments Joy's team change, and she jokes that he should have treated her better before she left. Leo quietly invites Joy for a coffee run with the finance team later, an offer Max overhears. Max silently slips his headphones back on. The scene shifts to a busy barbecue restaurant for the team dinner. The two tables are contrasted. Joy's group is loud and cheerful, while Max sits quietly with his colleagues. Leo brings up old rumors that he and Joy were dating, adding that they would make a cute couple. He continues that neither seems out of the other's league, prompting Max to take a tense sip of his drink. A coworker praises Leo's ambition, impressed that he's pursuing a master's degree after work. The blonde coworker at Max's table puts him on the spot, asking what he thinks about Joy and Leo as a potential couple. Another coworker agrees they suit each other more than Jaden did, a sentiment the blonde woman laughingly seconds. Exhausted by the social interaction, Max leaves the restaurant, just wanting to go home. He steps into a back alley and is surprised to find Joy crouching there on her phone. Joy asks if she should use his real name now that they're outside, but Max prefers to stick with Max, earning her praise for his clear boundaries. Max says he needed fresh air, while Joy explains she was taking a late work call from the QA team. Watching her handle work during dinner, Max silently admires her dedication. She looks up from her phone with a slight blush on her cheeks. Admitting she's a bit tipsy, Joy stands up and worries about her hangover, thinking aloud about getting chocolate milk. She cheerfully explains to the non-drinking Max that chocolate milk is an amazing hangover cure and a personal favorite. Someone calls for Joy from inside the restaurant. She tells Max to take his time, adding that Haley is very drunk. Back inside, Joy rejoins Leo at their table as he browses his phone. Leo suggests they go to a cocktail bar for a second round, and Joy recognizes the place from a post she saw on Instagram. Max watches them from outside, a silent observer in the night. He wonders if Joy and Leo would have formed the study group together if Leo had returned sooner. Beep! His phone buzzes, and he looks at the screen with a puzzled expression. A message from Esther appears, asking him to meet her at the convenience store. The scene shifts to a brightly lit convenience store at night. Esther gives a sly smile, cheekily remarking that they're finally alone. As they walk through the aisle, Max scolds her for saying misleading things, but she just finds him funny and asks what he meant to say the other day. Sure, here's the text you asked me to read. There's a new program that we're starting next week, and I'd like you to be a part of it. Max explains he only meant that it's rare for a UX starts UI designer like her to be so knowledgeable about developer terminology. She bursts into laughter, calling it a hilarious, Max-like compliment, leaving him to wonder what she means. He asks if she called him out just for that, but she says she was also buying hangover drinks for the team and had something else to tell him. He stops, surprised she has something to say specifically to him. Esther turns to him and sincerely apologizes for not properly thanking him before. Placing a hand on his arm, she tells him to come to her if he's ever having a tough time, catching him off guard. She rightly declares she'll be his trash can, which makes Max finally crack up. Flustered, she insists she's serious, but Max, holding back laughter, has to ask if she means an emotional trash can, which she sheepishly confirms. He finds her unique sense of humor amusing, noting the weirdness of her offer. Esther turns serious, explaining that while she can't solve his problems, sometimes just having someone to listen is enough. Struck by her sincerity, Max stares at her, prompting her to ask if something is on his face. She observes with surprise that this is the first time she's ever seen him genuinely laugh in the year they've worked together. As he becomes flustered, a cheerful chibi Esther tells him he looks much better and less gloomy when he smiles. He blushes, quietly repeating her gloomy comment to himself. Back at the restaurant, Joy sits alone, regretting that she followed them as she looks at Max's empty chair. She stares silently at the vacant seat, her expression somber. Esther leans in close, laughing and teasing Max for being so shy. Max redirects her, telling her to pick out the drinks she promised everyone, and she contemplates what to get besides boring hangover remedies. She mumbles about ice cream or sports drinks, lamenting her major decision paralysis. Max points to a shelf, suggesting an option for her. Back with the group, Esther cheerfully hands out cartons of chocolate milk for everyone before the second round. She playfully announces the choice was Max's, so he's to blame if they don't like it, as their coworkers thank and tease him. Leo asks Max if he's joining them for round 2, but Max awkwardly declines, saying he only planned to stay for the first. Leo insists the bar has non-alcoholic drinks and suggests they grab tea together next time, making Max flustered. Esther whispers to Leo that his promise was an empty gesture, and Max quietly tells her to be quiet. A coworker hands Joy a chocolate milk she saved for her, and Joy lights up as Max and Esther watch from the side. Esther looks on with a silent, pensive expression. The scene shifts to the next morning outside the towering office building. A gray-haired coworker approaches Max's desk with a friendly smile, asking if he's busy. Max says he isn't and asks what's wrong, and the coworker brings up the satellite office Leo had been using. Accompanied by Leo, the coworker explains that Jaden was supposed to help move equipment, but is unreachable due to a hangover. He then asks if Max could help instead, assuring him it won't take long, as Max silently fumes at being burdened with more work. Max resolves to finally say no, but he pauses when he sees Joy looking over. Joy gives him a questioning glance, and he averts his eyes, flustered. Defeated, Max agrees he has no choice, weakly accepting their profuse thanks. As Max walks away with them, fuming at his inability to refuse, Leo calls out to Joy. Leo asks Joy about a cake shop she likes near their destination, surprising her. He offers to pick something up for her, and her eyes sparkle with excitement as she asks if he's serious. She politely declines so as not to bother him, but Leo insists, saying he might as well since he'll already be out. Leo suggests getting cake for the whole team and asks for Max's input, who just wants to escape but weakly agrees. In the car, Leo hands Max a decaf drink, explaining that Joy told him about his preference, leaving Max to wonder what else they talk about. In the car, Leo tells Max that their colleague Patrick has been praising his coding skills as being mid-level or higher. In the car, Leo tells Max that their colleague Patrick has been praising his coding skills as being mid-level or higher. Max gets flustered, wondering internally what Patrick has been telling people. Leo reveals he wants to collaborate with Max before he quits, unbuckling his seatbelt with a click. Shocked, Max asks if he's quitting, but Leo clarifies he's only planning to do so gradually. Leo explains he was offered a position at a friend's new startup and is considering it after he finishes his master's degree. Max processes the new information, noting Leo's age, master's degree, and expensive import car. Max asks why Leo wouldn't just join a bigger, more established company like a unicorn startup. Leo explains he finds more fulfillment in building a company from the ground up rather than joining one that's already complete. Screech. After pulling over, Leo surprises Max by asking about his own future career aspirations. Max answers honestly that he wants to become a freelancer to avoid being tied down by people or organizations. He immediately worries that his answer made him sound like a social misfit. To his surprise, Leo calls his ambition admirable. Leo adds that talented freelancers can name their own price, earning a quiet thank you from a grateful Max. With a wink, Leo asks Max to keep his plans to leave a secret, especially from the commerce team. Though confused by the request, Max agrees. Max suddenly realizes they've been driving in circles, and both he and a panicked Leo notice they're lost. After finally loading the equipment, they make it to the dessert and gallery cafe. Inside the cafe, Leo notes Joy isn't answering her phone and wonders if he should just buy the most popular cake. Max steps in and points to a specific cake, confidently suggesting it's the best choice. The chosen dessert is a beautifully decorated cookies and cream cake. Gasp! Back at the office, Joy is stunned with delight upon seeing the cake. She explains the cake is always sold out and she couldn't call due to a meeting, while Leo expresses his relief. A coworker remarks that Leo's partner must be very thoughtful, and Leo smiles knowingly. When asked, Leo reveals it was Max who picked the cake, leaving Joy surprised. Joy glances over her monitor at Max's desk with a gentle smile. While Max is working, a paper cup with a slice of cake appears on his desk, making him look up in confusion. Joy explains it's for him and apologizes for spilling some powder, but Max says he doesn't mind. She cheerfully offers him a fork, saying good things should be shared, and a flustered Max thanks her. As he takes a bite, Max notes that the cake isn't as sweet as he expected, while Joy watches him. Joy continues to observe Max with a pensive, sideways glance. Esther shows a coworker a gift she bought for Joy, who is thrilled to receive it. Esther tells her that Max chose the chocolate milk at dinner, finding it surprising, as the coworker wonders if Max is leaving. The coworker holds the drink, recalling Joy's love for chocolate milk as a hangover cure. In a flashback, Joy watches silently as Max leaves the team dinner early to catch his bus. The coworker mumbles to herself that Max seems more thoughtful than he appears. Back in the present, Joy sits at her desk with a small, knowing smile. She looks at the cake slice and playfully wonders if she's allowed to eat it, ending the episode. In a car, Max feels unwell, narrating that he's extremely sensitive to caffeine. He clutches his chest, feeling his heart begin to race. A sudden realization dawns on him, and he looks in panic at the coffee cup he was given. He frantically checks the lid and confirms his fear. There's no decaf label. A coworker leans in, realizing their drinks got switched, and laughing that his coffee tasted unusually weak. Joy looks over with concern, reminding him he can't have caffeine, as the coworker apologizes. Max tries to brush it off, but internally panics as his heart continues to pound. The new episode begins with Joy sitting alone at a rainy bus stop. Overwhelmed, Max is bombarded by a flood of messages from Haley, Jaden, and Patrick about work issues and bugs. Gra? Ah! Max lets out a silent, furious scream at his desk while Joy watches, a note explaining he's overstimulated from the caffeine. Noticing his distress, Joy kindly offers to split the workload with him. Max quickly refuses her help, insisting it's his own responsibility to handle. Joy watches him with a sad yet understanding smile. A coworker asks Joy about her lunch plans, inviting her to join the old settlement team, and she nervously agrees to come later. A coworker asks Joy about her lunch plans, inviting her to join the old settlement team, and she nervously agrees to come later. The morning flies by in a blur for Max, who tries to calm himself with chamomile tea. Utterly drained, he silently stares at two small boxes in his hands. With a slight headache, Max wonders if the caffeine is to blame for how he's feeling. He nervously peeks out, worrying that it might start to rain. Joy and a coworker look over with confused expressions. As the day ends, Max is exhausted, after spending the entire day handling cross-team requests. While his coworkers whisper behind him, Max feels the caffeine crash and decides it's better to work on his main tasks tomorrow. Announcing he's heading out early, Max walks past Joy's desk. In the elevator, he rationalizes that adjusting his schedule to match his energy is a crucial office survival skill. Puff. He is thrilled to be leaving early for the first time in ages and plans to rest with all his might. Stepping outside, his plans are ruined by a sudden heavy downpour. Gulp. He laments that it had to rain today, of all days, since he has plenty of umbrellas at home. Suddenly, Joy appears beside him, offering to share her umbrella. Whoosh! She opens the umbrella with a smile, catching him by surprise. Walking together, she explains she's been practicing small talk, while he internally wishes he could use another skill. He wonders how he ended up in this situation, having been perfectly fine on his own. She cheerfully tells him it's just a short walk to the stop, but he can only respond with a groan. Joy teases Donggu about the chocolate milk, then playfully complains he's not holding the umbrella right and she's getting wet. She laughs that she was joking again, and a sighing Chibi, Donggu realizes she's enjoying teasing him. They continue walking in silence under the pouring rain. Donggu grows anxious, wondering when they'll finally reach the bus stop. They finally arrive at the bus stop and sit down to wait. Joy notes he was busy all day and worked through lunch, which he tiredly confirms. Shocked that he skipped a meal, she regrets not getting him a sandwich, but he insists he was fine. In a brief flashback, Joy watches as Leo waves to her in the office. Joy asks Donggu if he and Leo have worked together for a long time, and he confirms it's been over 3 years. She curiously asks why he's bringing Leo up, which flusters Donggu. Donggu internally questions himself, remembering their car conversation and thinking Leo is amazing, a sentiment Joy agrees with. Joy lists Leo's many positive qualities, calling him everyone's ideal type. She then turns to Donggu and confides that she personally likes the opposite type. She describes her ideal type as someone who is soft but doesn't show it, with a strong inner self. They sit in a pensive silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Flustered, Joy quickly clarifies that for working together, someone like him is better for her. She waves her hands dismissively, insisting he shouldn't misunderstand her. Donggu calmly reassures her that he doesn't misunderstand and tells her not to worry. As his bus arrives, Donggu thanks her for the umbrella and prepares to leave, thinking of the words he'll never say. Joy waves him off, wishing him a good day and saying she'll see him tomorrow. Her unspoken thoughts reveal her true feelings. She likes someone like him, Donggu. Donggu reflects that, compared to most people, he's ridiculously sensitive to caffeine. He takes a deep breath, clutching his hand. Thump, thump, thump. His heart begins to pound rapidly in his chest on the bus. Thump! He realizes with a jolt that his racing heart is because of the caffeine. A cheerful coworker named So-Yin approaches Joy, asking if she'd be interested in a blind date. So-Yin explains she posted a photo from their dinner, and a college senior saw it and asked for an introduction to Joy. Nearby, Donggu listens silently, with his headphones on. The Instagram post from the previous night shows Seirin and Joy at the team dinner. Whoa! Other coworkers comment that with Joy's looks, it's no surprise people are reaching out to her. In a new scene, Joy and Donggu walk down an alley as she gives him directions from her phone. A happy Chibi Joy explains they're heading to a cafe run by her friend, noting it's a bit far from the station. As he watches Joy talking to her friend, Donggu wonders if she's used to getting attention from photos online. As he watches Joy talking to her friend, Donggu wonders if she's used to getting attention from photos online. Joy playfully asks her friend for special service, while two guys whisper about how stunning she is, which Donggu overhears. Joy thinks to herself that if not for their study group, she would never be in a cafe with someone like him. Their table is set with ice cream, a rich-looking cake, and toast. While working, Joy agrees with Donggu's suggestion to make the design files open source as she reviews the requirements. Later at home, Joy works on her laptop and wonders if she should go on the blind date, admitting her curiosity. Ding! Donggu sends a message trying to convince himself that his curiosity about her blind date is just normal for a teammate. Back at the cafe, he casually asks Joy about the blind date he overheard her discussing with Esther. Gulp. Donggu panics as she laughs and asks if he was curious. She adds that she thought he couldn't hear anything with his headset on, leaving him speechless. In a tense silence, Donggu internally begs for the verdict while she quietly eats her dessert. As he nervously asks if she decided to go on the date, She looks at him thoughtfully. Sparkle. Joy admits the guy was good-looking, and she considered it, but ultimately turned him down, to a surprised and relieved Dong-gu. Dong-gu thinks to himself that it's a lame outcome, as things were just getting interesting. Joy explains that her career is more important right now, and she prefers natural encounters. PF. Dong-gu chokes on his drink when she clarifies she means spontaneous meetings, not one-night stands, and she laughs at his reaction. Wiping his mouth, Dong-gu questions if it's even possible to balance work, job hunting, and dating. Joy agrees it's tough unless it's an office romance, an idea that makes Dong-gu visibly cringe. Yuck. Seeing his reaction, Joy eagerly asks if he's against office romances, and he wonders why she seems to enjoy the topic so much. Dong-gu explains that office romances are too risky, hard to keep secret, and messy if they end. Recalling a past memory, he concludes that it's simply more efficient to avoid them. He admits he's not sure he could date at all, but Joy asks what he'd do if someone at work caught his eye. A flustered Dong-gu stammers as Joy cheerfully suggests it could happen while they work together. They fall into another awkward silence, unsure of what to say next. Dong-gu quietly admits he doesn't know what he'd do, as he's never had that kind of experience. He states that he sees work as just work, and doesn't believe other types of relationships are necessary there. Joy, now referred to as Chae-rin by Dong-gu, ponders his serious take before he asks for her thoughts on office romance. Chae-rin gets a dreamy look, saying she thinks it sounds fun and romantic. She leans in to whisper that, above all, it sounds thrilling, leaving Dong-gu utterly shocked. Panicked, Dong-gu assumes she must either be secretly dating a coworker or has never dated one before. Chae-rin adds that since she hasn't been drawn to anyone at work yet, maybe her standards are just too high. Remembering the guys who were admiring her, Dong-gu concludes it's no wonder her standards are high. He muses that if Chae-rin ever started dating, her partner would have to be on a whole other level. His mind flashes back to when she said her type was the opposite of Leo, someone like him. He mentally scolds himself for remembering that now, dismissing her words as a simple compliment between colleagues. Dong-gu suggests they leave, but Chae-rin insists he should eat, offering him the leftover dessert. Standing up, Dong-gu silently wonders what's been wrong with him lately. Outside, Chae-rin notes that Dong-gu looks pale and asks if he's cold, but he brushes it off. When she asks if he is heading to the bus stop, he decides to take the subway instead so they can part ways. As they leave, he asks about her availability for their next study session, and she tells him she's taking Wednesday off. She excitedly shows him her phone, explaining she won a ticket to a book signing for her favorite author. Gushing with excitement, she tells him she's been a fan since high school, and he finds her love for reading unexpected. Whoosh! Her face glows with happiness as she talks about the author's wonderful new book. Dong-gu watches her, completely captivated by her radiant expression. He thinks to himself that he's seen her smile many times before, but he realizes this is the first time he's ever seen her look so purely happy. She snaps him out of his thoughts by offering to let him borrow the book, startling him. Whump! He dazedly agrees, leaving her to look at him with a curious expression. She smiles and waves, wishing him well until they see each other tomorrow. Dong-gu stands alone at the station entrance, watching her walk away into the sunlit street. Lost in thought, Dong-gu stands speechless after she walks away. The scene changes to the next day, where a masked Joy sits at her desk, looking unwell. Her coworker, Seo-yeon, approaches and asks if Joy is sick, noting her unusual hat and mask. Joy confirms she's felt under the weather since morning. Joy jokes that it might just be because she's not wearing makeup, adding that she plans to see a doctor at lunch. She looks at her screen with concern, realizing some partner vendors aren't applying a coupon discount. She asks her coworker Patrick to look into the issue, hoping he can resolve it by tomorrow evening, and he agrees to check. A sepia-toned flashback recalls Joy excitedly telling Dong-gu she won a ticket to her favorite author's book signing on Wednesday. Back in the present, Dong-gu realizes tomorrow's Wednesday and asks Joy if she already submitted her leave request. Determined, Joy states she'll try to finish everything today, but if she can't, she'll have to cancel her day off. Dong-gu falls silent, looking down at his desk as he processes her words. A bespectacled coworker, Leo, offers to help, asking if Max and Patrick were handling the issue before Joy. Leo notes that Max and Patrick are faster at reviewing code anyway, which a nervous Patrick confirms, while Donggu clenches his fist in annoyance. Leo cheerfully suggests that Max and Patrick should just handle the issue today, much to Donggu's silent fury. Seyun reassures Joy, showing her medicine packet for Jang Chae-rin and warning her not to overdo it, a gesture Chae-rin finds sweet. Leo places a hand on her shoulder, promising they will explain everything to the team lead while she remains silently subdued. Patrick enthusiastically tells Joy not to worry and to go home early, trusting him and Max, as Donggu sits grimly at his desk. A moment later, Patrick apologetically tells Max he has 2 wedding gatherings to attend, and asks for his understanding. Outside on a bench, Patrick suggests Donggu handle the work alone since it's due tomorrow, leaving Donggu to wonder if he's insane. Patrick reasons that if it's not done, all 3 of them can finish it tomorrow, and Donggu reluctantly agrees, unable to argue against a wedding. Patrick thanks Donggu enthusiastically, calling him the team's ace, but Donggu coldly tells him to get off. Startled, Donggu has a sudden realization. If he doesn't finish the work today, he remembers Joy's resolve and understands she'll cancel her day off and come in tomorrow if the issue isn't fixed. Back at his desk, Donggu wrestles with his thoughts, wondering what the right thing to do is. Seyun asks Max if he's leaving, but he quietly says he plans to stay a little longer. She tells him she overheard everything and advises him not to take on the task alone, as it isn't his responsibility. He quietly acknowledges that waiting would be easier but remains conflicted. Suddenly feeling a chill, Donggu wonders if he's catching a cold, thinking it's possible he caught it from Joy. At a cafe, Joy's barista friend looks up in surprise and asks, "Huh? Seriously?" Thud. A clearly unwell Donggu orders an iced Americano with an extra shot to stay awake. Later, working late at the office with a headband on, a feverish Donggu realizes it really was a cold. He flashes back to Joy's radiant smile as she gushed about her favorite author's new book. Staring at his screen, looking miserable, he continues to work through his sickness. Time passes as he works through the night, alone in the dark office. Tap. Utterly exhausted, Donggu collapses onto his desk, feeling too weak to even call a cab. He eats a sweet pastry, wondering why Joy likes such things, admitting that while he thinks it's the worst, something is different. An image of Joy's glowing, happy face from their last conversation fills his mind. He struggles with his feelings, telling himself to get it together as this is bad. Overwhelmed by exhaustion and emotion, he covers his face with his hands. A thought begins to dawn on him as he looks up with wide, troubled eyes. His realization hits him alongside a vision of Joy surrounded by cherry blossoms. I like Joy. The episode ends, titled, Commit Feelings with the empty medicine wrapper on the desk. In a new scene, a friendly coworker asks Patrick if he sent the stats to the business team, and he replies he'll do it this afternoon. She kindly offers to send them for him, as she has other materials to send anyway, and a grateful Patrick calls her the team's ace. The same coworker wishes her colleague Andy a happy birthday, telling him she sent a gift coupon, and he thanks her. Another coworker asks Joy for a coffee run, and she agrees while fiddling with her empty medicine packet. Seyun playfully sniffs Joy's shoulder, asking about her new perfume, making Joy laugh and say it tickles. Donggu narrates that popular people are always surrounded by a crowd, leaving no room for loneliness. Gulp. He quietly sips his drink, observing the group from a distance. He thinks that sometimes there's a downside, as Joy looks on, while Leo eagerly asks about the dessert box she's holding. Donggu's thought concludes that the downside is people like Leo, who is now cheerfully eating a snack next to a smiling Joy. A friendly coworker offers Donggu, calling him Max, some dessert, as he narrates that some people willingly walk into traps. A friendly coworker offers Donggu, calling him Max, some dessert, as he narrates that some people willingly walk into traps. Donggu nervously declines, thinking to himself that he fell into a net that Joy never even set. His thoughts darken, likening his unrequited love to a slow, painful death. Coughing, he recalls trying to stay on guard and swearing he wouldn't develop feelings. A memory of Joy's happy expression surfaces as he admits that, in the end, he fell for her anyway. A new episode begins, titled Try-Catch, a fitting programming term for his situation. Back at the office, a coworker thanks Max for sharing a useful AI prompt earlier. As he agrees to share a reference blog, Donggu muses that being seen as a good coworker is completely different from being seen as a potential boyfriend. Watching Joy hum happily, he feels dejected, believing someone like him could never end up with her. Whisper. Startled, Donggu flinches as Joy leans in to ask about their next study session. Flustered, he nervously suggests they reschedule for next week, claiming this week is too difficult. She brightly asks when next week works, and a sweating Donggu stammers out a few days while she promises to check her schedule. Donggu remains at his desk, silently despairing over falling for someone he believes is completely out of his league. Wiping his hands, he resolves that since the accident of falling for her has happened, he must now clean it up before the feelings consume him. Thud, he slams his hand down, determined that these pointless emotions must be permanently deleted. He decides the first step to erasing his feelings is to start by changing his environment. Thud, with resolve, he concludes he needs to slowly start pulling away from her. Just as he makes his decision, Joy appears and cheerfully asks if he's heading home. Caught off guard, Donggu looks away and hesitantly confirms that he is. An awkward silence fills the elevator as they ride down together. Still feeling unwell, Donggu touches his cheek, thinking he's still running a bit of a fever. Joy notices his quietness, and he awkwardly agrees, still feeling sick. Breaking the silence, she suddenly remembers that she owes him a meal. Confused, he asks why, and she explains it's for working until 4 a.m. in her place. She beams, showing him her signed book, and happily crediting him for making her fan signing event possible. Watching her admire her book, Donggu realizes this is why she's been so happy all day. He decides to hide the fact that he was sick, knowing she would feel bad if she found out. Joy enthusiastically suggests they get dinner tomorrow to celebrate. In an attempt to distance himself, Donggu lies that he has plans with his family. He remains silent and conflicted as Joy reconsiders. A memory of her happy face flashes in his mind as he thinks she trusts him not to cross a line. Undeterred, she asks about the day after tomorrow, putting him on the spot again. He thinks that if she knew his feelings, she wouldn't give him false hope, as she looks at him with surprise. Looking at her phone, she tells him it's okay, seemingly accepting his quiet rejection. She looks down with a hint of disappointment. Pushing his rejection further, Donggu tells her that weekends are a bit much for him. He keeps his expression stoic as he glances back at her. Joy falls silent, looking at her phone with a confused and somber expression. She finally looks up and quietly accepts his rejection, her cheerful demeanor gone. The scene shifts to a bright morning sun shining through an office window. A hand forcefully silences a phone alarm, signaling the start of a new day. Still in bed, Donggu dreads going to work while an inner voice tells him to quit, which he angrily dismisses. The memory of Joy's disappointed expression in the elevator weighs on his mind. He worries that if he arrives at 8, it will just be the two of them, and his inner voice nags him about his cold. Looking out at his apartment, he resolves that the first step is to change his arrival time at work. At the office, Patrick asks Max why he came in late, noting he usually arrives at 8. Donggu claims he's sleeping in for his health, while Patrick remarks on his recent overtime, which Donggu internally blames him for. Patrick and Leo greet Joy, with Patrick teasing that she'll be lonely now that Max is starting at 10, leaving her shocked. Donggu nervously claims he hasn't been sleeping well, as Joy looks at him with genuine concern. Leo playfully suggests Joy change her start time too, prompting an internally furious Donggu to tell him to shut up. Ugh, feeling exhausted, Donggu hears someone call his name as he struggles to keep his composure. Ugh, feeling exhausted, Donggu hears someone call his name as he struggles to keep his composure. A coworker claps to get everyone's attention, interrupting the morning quiet as Donggu and Joy look on. A manager announces a business meeting with a partner, asking for a volunteer developer or designer to join. When no one steps up, the manager suggests that reliable Patrick could go, putting him on the spot. Seeing a chance to escape, Donggu impulsively volunteers, surprising a relieved Patrick. Hug! Patrick and the manager praise Donggu as the team's ace, while he uncomfortably asks to be let go, and Joy watches silently. Joy remains quiet, her expression thoughtful and concerned as she observes the exchange. Episode 18 begins, titled Fieldwork, showing the Texas Square office building. In an off-site meeting, Donggu discusses API specifications, internally lamenting that he normally avoids this kind of work. Looking disgusted, he complains to himself about the hour-long subway ride, hating every minute of it. He realizes that while he dodged the office for a day, he still has to face Joy for their study group next week. The memory of him coldly telling Joy that weekends are too much for him flashes through his mind. He silently curses himself for what he said, and his sudden outburst startles his meeting partners. The blonde coworker, Esther, asks if their requests were unreasonable, but Donggu quickly insists they can do it. At the end of the day, the client thanks them and says they can head home directly, having already informed their boss. At the subway entrance, Esther asks Max if he's taking the train, and he confirms he needs to transfer. Discovering they're going the same way, she cheerfully suggests they travel together, and he reluctantly agrees. The subway train glides along the tracks as the sun sets. Donggu and Esther sit in a quiet, nearly empty train car. He feels awkward, realizing that despite what happened with her in the past, they've never really talked outside of work. Deciding to retreat into his music, he searches his backpack for his headset. He panics slightly, realizing he forgot his headset, as Esther seems to notice his unease. Startled, he looks up as Esther tells him she has made a decision. She announces that she's not going to quit, telling Max he was right about not running away because of one person. Looking at her phone, she concludes that quitting would have been her loss. Donggu pouts as he sees her put in her own earbuds, sealing him in silence. He recalls her earlier vow to resign if things didn't improve, wondering how much time has really passed. Looking at him with newfound resolve, Esther says she's focusing on her career now, and it's all thanks to him. Donggu listens intently, caught off guard by her sincere gratitude. She explains she wanted to tell him in person, and he awkwardly thanks her for sharing. Esther gushes that his compliment about her being a rare designer who gets developers was the best she's received, while he thinks it's too early in the year to decide that. She playfully asks if he can defend his #1 spot for 7 more months, and he smirks, questioning her ranking system. She laughs, delighted to see him genuinely smiling again, though he quickly denies it. Ha! Donggu sighs, processing their unexpectedly deep conversation. She kindly offers to be there for him too, telling him to come talk to her if he's ever feeling down. Moved, he hesitates before trying to start a conversation, calling her name. Esther looks at him, waiting for him to continue as he struggles to find his words. He quickly backtracks and says it's nothing, just as Esther expresses her annoyance at people who stop talking mid-sentence. He quietly apologizes, and an awkward silence settles between them again. Esther watches him with a soft, knowing smile. Taking a chance, Donggu finally asks about her ex-boyfriend, confirming he's the person she needs to avoid. He then asks her if it's hard having to pretend everything is okay while seeing her ex at the office every day. SSSHHH. She grimaces, admitting the thought alone makes her want to throw up, shocking Donggu with her visceral reaction. He immediately regrets asking, realizing he may have crossed a line. A quiet, tense moment passes between them on the moving train. The train continues its journey through the city as evening deepens. Softening, Esther assures him that the situation is getting better. She turns to him with a warm, appreciative smile, bathed in the evening light. Donggu looks away, lost in thought after their vulnerable exchange. On the train ride home, Esther smiles peacefully, murmuring that's a relief, as Donggu sits silently beside her. Lost in thought on the train, Donggu resolves to think of his feelings for joy as a short-lived fever. He tells himself it will pass soon, gripping his bag as Esther glances at him knowingly. Startled, he suddenly realizes he's struggling to remember Joy's real name. Esther smiles, cheerfully announcing that she remembers Joy's name, Jang Charon. She turns to a surprised Donggu, confirming that Joy's real name is Jang Charon. With a knowing smile, Esther repeats that she remembers now, Jang Charon. She prods a quiet Donggu, asking for confirmation that her name is indeed Jang Charon. Stunned and confused by her sudden question, Donggu can only utter a bewildered huh? As Esther watches him with a sly grin, he internally panics, wondering what she's getting at. His mind goes completely blank as he flushes, totally unsure how to react to her probing. Esther teases Max, calling him a terrible con artist, and admitting she was just messing with him because his reaction is now making her flustered too. He sputters, asking what's wrong with his face, and she laughs, telling him he's obviously been busted. Ugh, defeated. Donggu slumps in his seat while Esther suddenly declares that she's starving. She turns to him with a bright, inviting smile and asks if he wants to grab a bite to eat. Episode 19 begins, titled Balance of Terror, featuring a cheerful Esther. The scene shifts to the brightly lit exterior of a traditional Korean restaurant at night. Inside, Esther confidently holds up her hand to order 2 bowls of soup, extras, and soju. While she enthusiastically orders soju, Donggu quietly requests a Coke Zero, annoyed that he gets no say in the matter. Esther explains the restaurant is a local gem from her college days, but Donggu grumbles that he thought they were getting food, not just drinks. She beams, holding up a soju bottle and insisting it's just food with a little drink on the side, as he thinks she's being bossy. As she pours a drink, Esther asks how he knew about her feelings, playfully admitting she would have ignored it if he'd kept playing dumb. She asks if anyone can truly hide their feelings, pointing out that his expressions have become much richer since Joy started sitting next to him. After he asks what she means, Esther explains that she became sure of his feelings on Wednesday. Donggu thinks back, realizing Wednesday was the day Joy took off for a fan event, while he just slept in after an all-nighter. Gotcha, Esther points accusingly, revealing her clue was the takeout coffee on Joy's desk that day. She explains that Joy, who never has caffeine, drank coffee while pulling an all-nighter for work that wasn't even hers. Isn't that true love? She exclaims, while Donggu weakly argues it could have been decaf. She scoffs at his excuse, questioning who would drink decaf for an all-nighter unless they were a weirdo. Tying her hair back, she asks if he's sure about the Coke Zero, offering to order it now. Resigned, he decides to play along, while Esther smugly tells him he had his chance and can't complain now. Whoa! Esther takes a shot of soju, looking genuinely impressed with herself. Sip. Donggu cautiously tries the soju and immediately recoils, wondering why anyone drinks it, as she nonchalantly comments on his tolerance. Thwack! She slams her glass down emphatically, declaring that Joy is also partly at fault, making him flinch. Esther lectures that attractive people should set clear boundaries to avoid misunderstandings, but notes that Joy is completely clueless about it. She explains that Joy doesn't realize her effect on others, then suddenly pivots, asking Donggu why he's running away. She bluntly accuses him of blatantly avoiding Joy, and points out that Joy is completely unaware of how he feels. He looks down, admitting that while he lacks the courage to win her over, he has more than enough strength to run away. Musing over his soup, he concludes that from her perspective, they just don't match. Esther interrupts his thoughts by asking what's wrong with him, and he looks up in confusion. Softening her tone, she tells him that she doesn't think he's lacking in any way. She then challenges him directly, asking just how much he actually knows about Joy. She lists all the things he likely doesn't know about Joy: her age, hobbies, hometown, or even her MBTI, since he just learned her name. She scolds him for prematurely deciding he doesn't match with Joy without even trying to know her. Taking another drink, she drunkenly slurs that his behavior is truly, extremely frustrating. Seeing she's drunk, Donggu suggests they should probably leave for the night. As they walk home, he recalls Joy saying she prefers colleagues who don't cross the line, reinforcing his decision to back away. He glumly accepts that he doesn't have the courage to cross that line in the first place. Walking ahead, Esther looks back at him with a soft, concerned, and thoughtful expression. Esther explains she was conflicted, debating whether to quit her job or get back together with her ex. Esther explains she was conflicted, debating whether to quit her job or get back together with her ex. She tells Donggu that in the end she realized she simply wanted to do her job well at her current company. Stopping, she advises him that he should also take the time to think things through. She pointedly asks him to decide whether he truly wants to distance himself from Joy or take things further. She reassures a pensive Donggu that no one is rushing him to make a decision. With a knowing look, she points out that since they now know each other's secrets, neither will betray the other, promising to keep his secret as he quietly agrees. Now, sitting on a bench, Esther surprises him by asking for his number. She looks up, flustered and confused by his reaction. Misunderstanding, she clarifies she meant his account number to send him money, but he confirms he understood correctly. He hands over his phone, telling her to look, as she sees he's already inputting her contact. Donggu looks on, completely baffled, as she holds his phone. She discovers he saved her as Yeyuni and playfully explains he can send money via messenger, letting him change the name. She teases that her number is special, then pouts at his unenthusiastic reaction. As a train announcement plays, Donggu makes a quick exit, noting she seems drunk while she curses his departure. He boards the crowded train, leaving her to watch him go. From the bench, she gives him a cheerful, "You can do it," with a bright smile. On the train, Donggu stares at his phone, still processing the recent events. His phone suddenly buzzes with an incoming call from Joy. The call from Code and Canvas, Zhang Che-rin, Joy continues to ring. He stares at the screen in disbelief, wondering what's happening since she's never called before. Standing on the platform, he hesitates, wondering if he should call her back. Staring at his reflection, he chides himself for being nervous and reflects on the week's whirlwind of events. The thought of the upcoming week fills him with dread before the weekend has even begun. He recalls his cruel, unspoken thoughts about pushing Joy away, acknowledging that emotional decisions are often mistakes. A memory of Esther's voice echoes in his mind, advising him to take time to think. He remembers her words, urging him to decide if he wants to distance himself from Joy or move forward. Walking into work on Monday, Donggu resolves to accept his feelings and carefully consider his next steps. He steels himself to make a wise decision as Joy works at the coffee machine. Joy playfully questions his early arrival, and he coolly replies that he slept well over the weekend. Trying to act normal, he asks about Friday's workload, and she confirms Patrick handled everything. Relieved that it's not as awkward as he feared, he offers her a chocolate. He calmly unwraps his coffee, telling himself that today is just like any other day. He tries to convince himself that she didn't take his harsh words to heart. He realizes he's been making assumptions about her without knowing anything. He internally cringes at his own foolish thoughts, like deciding she was too good for him. The painful memory of him telling her that weekends were too much pressure resurfaces. Sweating, he admits to himself that he didn't mean any of it. Joy watches him in silence, her expression serious and questioning. As she reaches for her coffee, he gently stops her hand, much to her surprise. A cup of chamomile tea and a chocolate now sit on his desk, a peace offering. He reflects that he needed a lame excuse that day because he couldn't admit he likes her. He finally confesses that he worried all weekend she might have believed his hurtful words. Joy listens quietly, looking down as she processes his confession. She hands him a pink gift bag, explaining it's the book and gift from her signing event. She says it's a thank you for covering her all-nighter and that she planned to give it to him Friday. Looking down, Joy reflects that she was only thinking about her own boundaries. She admits that while he was trying not to cross her line, she wasn't being considerate of his. With a gentle, apologetic smile, she says she's sorry for being inconsiderate too. Donggu feels a weight lift, but now faces a new problem, a mountain of unfinished work. Donggu considers his schedule and resigns himself to working overtime, dreading another all-nighter. To his surprise, Joy appears and quietly asks if he needs some help. She explains that she figured he'd be behind on his work after everything that happened last week. Overwhelmed by her kindness, he internally declares that she is definitely an angel. He feels guilty making her work late, thinking he should send her home, and starts to decline. He panics, realizing that refusing her help might make her think he feels burdened by her again. He reasons that pushing her away now would be strange after their morning reconciliation, as she waits for his answer. Defeated, Donggu agrees to let her help just for today, and she cheerfully accepts. Checking his watch, he figures they can leave within 40 minutes at their current pace. A short while later, Joy has fallen asleep at her desk. Donggu decides to quickly organize the lounge and then wake her so they can leave together. He approaches her with a blanket, startled by how close he is to her sleeping form. He gently drapes the blanket over her, telling himself to get a grip and not be distracted. Watching her sleep peacefully, his heart begins to pound in the quiet office. As he gazes at her, he feels as if time has completely stopped. Flustered, he quickly claims he just finished organizing and was about to wake her up. He internally frets that he must have looked suspicious, hoping she doesn't get the wrong idea. She thanks him for the blanket, remarking that it's chilly and he just got over a cold, while he notes it's been on her for less than 30 seconds. He decides to just finish the rest of his work when he gets home. Episode 21, titled Fall Down, begins as they find the elevator is out of service for inspection. Donggu and Joy stand in silence before the out-of-order elevator. Annoyed, he sighs that they'll have to take the stairs, noting it's under inspection again. As they head down, Joy worries he didn't get to eat because of her, but he brushes it off as she mentions her freezer is full of food. She adds that the chicken he gave her a coupon for is in there too, and he recalls the gift. Joy asks if he lives with his family, and he confirms it's a family of 4, making her jealous of his home-cooked meals. Feeling it's his turn, Donggu asks Miss Charon about her living situation. She explains that she's been living alone ever since she graduated from high school. Joy shares that moving to Seoul from Gangneung alone was hard, while Donggu tries to find a silver lining, suggesting she has more free time. She explains that with no one to welcome her, she would rather work overtime with coworkers than eat alone at home. She asks if he understands what she means, but he privately admits he doesn't at all. She confesses that being alone in her small apartment makes her feel depressed and consumed by negative energy, wishing she dated more. Donggu thinks about how strong she appears at work, but she insists she's actually sensitive and worries a lot about what others think. She reveals she hesitated to give him the book, worried it would be a burden. Shocked, he starts to apologize, but she quickly says she's just kidding. She asks him to keep their conversation just between them. Joy confides in him that she's a person who worries and hesitates a lot. Donggu quietly accepts her confidence, telling her he understands. As they descend the dark stairwell, he notices the motion sensor light is broken, and she tells him to be careful. He decides to turn on his phone's flashlight to help them see. Whoa! As he reaches for his phone, he suddenly trips, and they both go tumbling down the stairs. Ugh! Joy lands on top of a dazed Donggu, worriedly asking if he's okay. Ning, he insists he's fine, but as he asks about her, she claps a hand over his mouth and shushes him. They fall silent as two women walk by, complaining about the broken elevator. Trapped in the dark with Joy on top of him, Donggu's heart pounds wildly in his chest. He feels like his heart is about to explode from the proximity and tension. After the others pass, Joy laments they should have just taken the freight elevator, while Donggu thinks he nearly died in several different ways. Later at the bus stop, Donggu thanks her for helping with work and for her gift. She tells him it's her favorite poetry book, and he is touched by the personal gesture. She asks him to read it and tell her later which poem he finds the most impressive. With a look of resolve, Donggu agrees and promises to read the book she gave him. The scene transitions to a quiet apartment building at night. Later, Donggu lies in bed and begins reading the book, feeling that her taste in poetry is unexpected. Smash! A woman with a cast bursts into his room, frantic that her ex is in a new relationship, and tells him to get out. As she sobs on his bed, he exasperatedly asks why she dated him, knowing she dislikes office romances, while she questions why he can move on and she can't. She tearfully explains she would have regretted not dating him more, leaving him to wonder what she wants from him, declaring she can't. Ouch. She grabs his arm, insisting he's a good drinker and shouldn't ditch her, while he just wants to be left alone to read. He complains about a rotten smell from her mouth, and as he pulls the book away, a small folded note falls out. Annoyed, he pushes his hair back, then notices the note on his bed. As his sister looks on curiously, he picks up the folded note. He opens the note from Joy, which reveals her favorite poem in the book, and asks for his. Reading her personal message, he stares in wide-eyed shock, breaking into a cold sweat. He frantically flips through the book, desperately trying to find the page the note came from as his sister watches. Completely baffled. Thwack! Oblivious, she hits him with a pillow, suggesting a drink, as he screams for her to just get out.
Right now, your brain's still open, still listening. That means I have one last chance to tell you something important. You didn't find this video by accident. Something pulled you here, so trust that instinct. Like the video, it locks in the value. Comment something, anything. It gives your mind closure. And hit subscribe, or don't. But if you don't understand this, you'll forget this moment, this channel, and you'll search for something like it again, but you won't find it. This is where that search ends. So act before your window closes.